Hello everyone, and in today's video we are back with the Ielts exam and we're going to be focusing on the writing. So this video will be ideal for you if you've just found out that you have to take the Ielts exam and you're trying to find out what to do, or you've been doing Ielts for a little bit of time and you want to improve your score in the writing. In this video what I'm going to be doing is literally going through some of the tips for the part 1 of the Ielts. So very quickly, hopefully you know this already, but just in case you don't, in part 1 what you have to do is write a report, and this report is usually based on either a process, it could be a graph, a pie chart, a table, or a mixture of these things, or a combination of both. And you've got to write at least 150 words, picking out the main trends and making comparisons wherever possible. And this is part of the exam which is tricky for a lot of candidates, because unless you're a student of statistics or economics, you're not really used to spending a long time looking at graphs and analyzing them. So how do you do well in this part of the exam? Here are some things that you need to think about. Alright, so first of all, summarize what you see in your own words. So the first paragraph of your report, they actually tell you what you see in the diagram, and a lot of students kind of rely fairly heavily on this prompt. What you've got to do is don't use the same words that are in the question, because this is just showing language reliance. You've got to kind of take what they give you, maybe put a little bit of extra information, like over the, including the years, or instead of saying from 1980 to 2000 over a 20-year period, you've got to kind of put it in your own words. Alright, so don't just copy what you see. You will not get any marks if you do this, and you won't make a good impression on the examiner. Also, talk about the main trends. So in the first paragraph, you're talking about what you see in the diagram or diagrams. In the second one, they do ask you in the question to pick out the main trends. So it's very good to do a 3-4 line paragraph summarizing basically, literally, what you see. Is everything increasing? Are some things decreasing and other things, some things decreasing, other things increasing? You've got to kind of, over the period, like say it's a 50-year period that you're watching, what is happening? What's the major trend over these 50-year periods? So if you had to sum what you're seeing up in 3 or 4 lines, this is what you should be trying to do. Describe what you see. Now, you're expected to use very descriptive language, and again, this is something, there'll be a video on this as well, hopefully for the link here, so click on that if you want to see lots of descriptive language. You've literally got to describe how things are increasing. Is it a rapid increase? Is it a gradual increase? Is it fluctuating? Is it rapidly decreasing, plummeting? All of these descriptive ways of describing change, if you will, like rapidly decreasing, fluctuating wildly, gradually increasing. This is what you've got to get good at. You can't just say it is rapidly increasing, rapidly increasing, rapidly increasing, rapidly increasing. You've got to be able to say this in numerous different ways. You should never be repeating language that you've already used. So describe what you see. Back up what you're saying with figures. Now again, this is something that you've got to get used to doing. So if you're describing something, like I just said, like it's rapidly increasing, give the figures. Yeah, is it from whatever, 500,000 to 120,000? That's an increase of 70,000 or something like that. Use figures to prove what you're saying, to back up what you're saying, and this is very important. Okay, watch out for these magic numbers. Again, there should be a link to a video that explains what these magic numbers are, as I call them. Things like 34%, that's very close to 33, which is a third. 52%, that's very close to 50%, which is a half. 66 2/3, 75 3/4, and you can use this to help compare and describe things. So look out for these magic numbers, and again, use figures, okay, as I said here. Make sure you are comparing as much as possible. It does say in the question, compare wherever relevant. So again, and this is a skill, okay, using things like there are twice the number of people that studied in Cardiff in this year than in this year. Alright, there's a huge difference between the number of girls and the number of boys. You know, you've got to use these contrasting expressions. As well as this, and this I think is the really important thing, organize your work in a way that you can make comparisons. Now, let's say you've got a graph showing you how something increases in, let's say, over months, like January, February, March, April, May, July, over a year. Okay, now if you want to make comparisons, you could obviously talk about how something is changing, or you could do it by month. And you've got to think, how can I organize my work in a way that will allow me to make comparisons easily? And there's always one way of doing that. Okay, it's hard for me to explain this. If you have any questions about this, send me a comment and I'll try and do another video specifically on this, because it is a very, very useful skill. Don't exceed the word limit by too much. This is a very common problem in this part. It does say at least 150. I have had a lot of students and they're writing 250, sometimes even 300 words for this part. And again, I always tell them that that's not, you know, really necessary. Cambridge is telling you that in their opinion, you can write a good answer in at least 150. So you should never be writing lower than this. But, you know, I would think 180, 190 is more than enough. Because if you are writing 200 to 300 words, you're probably spending too long on this composition. Remember, they recommend that you only spend 20 minutes on this part and 40 minutes on the essay. So you shouldn't be spending too long on this part of the exam. And also remember, another reason for this is this part, the report, is actually 40% of your total writing mark, whereas the essay, where you've got to write over 250 words, is actually 60% of your mark. So in the big scheme of things, your essay is more important. So you should not be spending half an hour or 35 minutes on the report. And it is tricky. They will give you questions like maybe 4 different pie charts. There was one last year with 4 pie charts with a huge amount of information. You can't possibly write about everything, and it does say clearly in the question, choosing and picking out the main important points or the main trends, and this is what you've got to get good at. So very, very quickly again, this is what, let's say, how you should organize your report. And again, this is a guide. You can organize it however you wish, and generally, as long as you're paragraphing your work, you can't really go wrong. But this is how I advise my students to do it. So, a brief introduction, restating the question in your own words, then a small paragraph going over the main trends that you see. Your body is where you give all the comparison, all your figures, use all your descriptive language. Well, in fact, you should be using that the whole way through. Okay, and this is the main part. And again, some people like doing a brief conclusion. And when I mean a brief conclusion, I mean like 2-3 lines, okay? Remember, you never have to explain why things are happening. You just have to explain what is happening, never why. Okay, so you can do a conclusion. It is nice, but again, it's not essential. So that is what I recommend doing. I hope this video has been useful. If you have any questions or anything like that, get in touch with us. That's what we're here for. Thanks for watching. Bye.